everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Taylah and I make scrunchies, bows and bags. I've been doing so for 12 years now. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about the 5 things I would do differently if I was to start my business again in 2026. So these things that I've chosen are things that I didn't really do when I first started my business. And that could have been the timing. I was 15 when I started and I didn't really know what I was doing. I was just kind of taking it as it came. But a lot of it is stuff I learned along the way, even little mistakes that I've made that has kind of shaped where I am today. So these are things that would benefit both people starting a brand new business in 2026 or people that have been in business for a while and maybe haven't thought about these things. Hopefully it'll be able to help. And I'm very sorry about the sun. It keeps going in and out behind the clouds, so I won't be able to really fix that because it just keeps coming and going. So sorry if I look very pale one second and then dark the next. I thought I'd start off with my favorite one, the biggest one that I honestly didn't really do until a couple of years ago, and it has made the biggest difference, one of the biggest differences in my business, and I guess the amount of money that my business actually makes. It has made a very big impact on, and that is sales techniques and focusing on those quite early on. So I didn't do that when I first started. Yes, I did sales when I first started and I did like giveaways and stuff. I did some of those and like they worked. They weren't terrible and they are sales technique, don't get me wrong. But the 2 specific sales techniques that really helped my business personally have been BOGO, which is buy one, get one, and free shipping. So there's a few different ways that you can do both of these and I will explain them in depth just in case you're thinking, well, I can't just do buy one, get one, like that's my profit margins will be eaten up. This is a tip that I learned when I did one single marketing thing. I paid someone to do marketing for me and I did it once for 1 month and then I decided to give up on it. But this is pretty good valuable advice that I got, so I'm giving it to you for free. But this specific thing, they suggested to do buy one, get one, but make it more personalized to me. So I had to think and I was like, well, I could do buy 4, get 1 free. Like if I work out my profit margins and how much getting up to that 4 point would actually cost me to give one away for free, it was the best option for me. I had to look at like, you know, doing buy 2, get 1 free and stuff like that, but really it was the buy 4 because when I first started doing this sales technique, which was I think early 2023, was selling only scrunchies at that point, scrunchies and bows, and I was only selling like 1 or 2, maybe 3. It was very rare that I would sell 4 or 5. So I wanted to try and get that cart value up from what it already was. So people are already purchasing 2 or 3 items. I wanted to try and get up to that 4 point. And by doing that, just adding the buy 4, get 1 free, I've had my cart value go from like $30 to $60 over those past 2 years from that alone, even before I added in like higher value products like makeup bags and stuff like that. So it was a massive difference in price. People saw the buy 4, get 1 free and added more to their cart. So I would definitely recommend looking into a sales technique such as the BOGO ones and just seeing what will work for you and your brand and what you sell. I also do the buy 4, get 1 free for the makeup bags. That one was a little bit more tricky for me because it's a big amount of money. Whereas the scrunchies, they're $12. $12, who cares? It's like a freebie that's added into their order. The makeup bags, they're like $50 to $70. Some of them are even more. So that was a big sting. But then I take a step back and I look at it. I'm like, well, if I didn't have that, would I have got 4 of the makeup bags ordered in that order? I might have only got 1 or 2. So instead of making like $50 or $100, I've made $200 and I'm giving them a free one. So it's just kind of like upping that cart limit and that helps so much. Free shipping is also another sales technique that I didn't do very early on, and I feel like that was more because I was only shipping in envelopes, and back in the day, it was so cheap to ship Australia-wide or worldwide. Now it's very expensive. Free shipping is a great one, and you don't have to just do free shipping for one item. You can have a limit. So for example, my free shipping threshold is $75. It used to be $50, but with all of the price increases, it got a bit harder to just do free shipping there. So it's $75, and obviously I'd still make a profit on whatever's ordered for that. I also have like free shipping worldwide. That was $120. I have upped it to $150 just because prices keep rising. I don't know if I'm going to drop it back down though, because I have noticed a lot of international buyers haven't been purchasing. I don't know, I'm going to give it a couple more weeks because I have only just reopened my website. I would like to maybe just do a little bit more research on that threshold and just see if the $120 or maybe $125 would be more suitable rather than $150 for international, and just see if that will help with abandoned checkouts or yeah, just help get it through the door. I also offer staggered shipping increases, or I should probably say decreases, but if you have like a certain amount of product in your cart, like let's just say $50, gives you a discount on the shipping before you get to the free shipping. So let's just say I charge $12 for shipping. If you have $50 in your cart, it goes down to like $6. And then if you have $75 in your cart, it's free. That's Australia example. But that's sort of what I've been doing, and it has been working really well, especially for Australia orders. Internationally, it was working really well when I had it at $120, but I do think I will have to change that again because now it is at $150, and I feel like that might be too high for where I'm aiming for, and like for my products and stuff. So I will have to readjust that myself, but that's another thing that you guys can think about if you would like to offer free shipping. But then you might think, oh my gosh, I cannot offer free shipping because my products, I do not make enough money on my products. So the way that you do that is you increase your product price. It is very common in the industry to do this. You would add like an extra $1 or $2, or you would add the full amount of the shipping onto that product depending on what sort of product you have. Like, I mean, if you're selling a $12 scrunchie, you can't really just add $10 to it. I would usually sell scrunchies at markets and stuff for a bulk buy deal, so they end up being around $10, maybe $9. So if I keep these at $12, then that's $2 per scrunchie that goes towards the shipping, if that makes sense. That's just a very loose example of how you can do it. So whatever your price is, add a couple of dollars and see where it kind of offsets. I've got that specific one from Etsy a few years ago because they were like, you need to do this to get orders, like you need to do free shipping. And I don't know if it was Etsy itself or something. It was definitely something to do with Etsy when that came out. Maybe it was like someone else on YouTube suggesting it, but a lot of people were saying put the shipping price into your product price because that appears better to buyers. And we all get caught out on it because I do it too. I don't want to pay shipping, but you know, like if something's $50, something's $60, this one's $60, but this one's $50 with $10 shipping, I'd probably just do the $60 one. You know what I mean? So it is like a sales technique at the end of the day, but it does work. So that's something else to look into, is the free shipping, and work out what's going to work for you, whether you want to up your prices slightly or try and like work it into your price, or you just want to take the loss when you have it like a $100 limit to get free shipping, and that eats into your profits. So you can do it like that way if you don't want to up your prices. But yeah, it just really depends on what you want to do. But I would recommend those two if you are starting in 2026, or if you're watching to see if there's other tips that I'd recommend. Definitely recommend those ones. Tip number 2, kind of wish I paid more attention to the URL when I had my Shopify store. So I have been on Etsy for a long time by the time I got my Shopify store, but when I did get my Shopify store, it wasn't a very professional looking website. I mean, probably Etsy isn't either. You know, the standalone URLs are much more professional looking and kind of show you mean business. It did take me a little while to change over to a proper URL. By doing that, it adds a lot of trust and a lot of, I guess, viability that you are a professional website. You are someone that's here for the long run and not just some random store that's just opened up. I think it gives a lot of almost seniority, or like that sort of feeling that it's a professional sort of site that they're looking at, rather than just having a .shopify store or like Etsy store. And you can link them up, which a lot of people might be confused about that. When you purchase your URL, you can link it so it redirects to your Shopify, it redirects to your Etsy. One that I would recommend is a .store domain. So a .store domain is a domain handle. So for example, taylorrose.store, that provides a professional URL for your website. And by having a .store domain, it also takes the guesswork out of what sort of website you are. Someone could be clicking on your website and they would have no idea if it's a blog website or a website for recipes. If you have a .store domain, people that are clicking on that URL will know that you are a store and you are selling a product. So if you would like a .store domain today, I've got a link in my bio so you can go check them out. Thank you .store for sponsoring this video, and let's get on to number 3. Build trust from day one. This kind of ties in with number 2 because I do feel like having a proper domain name does really help with building trust. It shows that you're legitimate and that you mean business. But other ways that you can build trust from day one is adding an about me section and focus on getting some reviews. So it is really hard when you first start out because your website, it might not be the best, it might have things missing, you might not realize that there's errors or like there's blank spaces, like on Shopify if you add a product and don't add anything to the little widget, it just shows up as like an empty bag or something, like a grey bag. You want to make sure that your website is looking professional. You want to go through and make sure that there's no loose ends, that there's no error codes, that like everything is connected. Like even simple things like connecting your Facebook down the bottom. If you've got your widgets for like the Facebook and Instagram, make sure that they actually are connected to your Instagram and Facebook, because I know I personally haven't done that in the past, where it took me probably years, I don't even know how long, to realize that that wasn't connected properly, and people were probably clicking on that and it was just not doing anything or going into an error page or like a 404 not found. So you want to make sure that all those little things on the website are correctly published and have the correct links. I do think it is important to have an about me section, whether you be a small business or a small family brand. I think it just gives a little bit more reality to the business and it's not just some scam website. Because I know myself, I've looked at some pages, like some websites that I'm a little bit unsure of and they have no reviews, and you know, sometimes there's, as I said, there's Shopify, if you don't have the products listed properly, like it has no photos and it's like got error messages. I've also seen like obviously no about me section, like I can't find out even simple things like where this business is located. It might be in Australia, but where? I want to know what location. I want to know where, if you're in Queensland or if you're in Victoria, because that's going to determine how long things are going to take to get to me. And even things that help with taking the guesswork out of things. So an FAQ page really helps as well. So common questions that people ask me, like how long will it take to ship? Are your products handmade? Do you ship worldwide? Do you offer express shipping? Things like that that, you know, people might not want to just message the company and ask, but there's just a really nice tidy FAQ page where people can just go have a look. It really does help with building trust, and it helps with giving legitimacy to the website, which will help get orders and just help make it look more professional. So I definitely do recommend that one. I suppose I started out on Etsy, so it is already like that small handmade vibe, and it does have an about me section, and that's something it recommends straight away. So I feel like this one I probably did do from the start, besides making sure the links work. That one I didn't, but the about me section I feel like really did help build a relationship with my customers, build a relationship with just people in general. Really helped grow my business to where it is today. This one I definitely didn't do from the start, and you will probably get sick of me repeating it over and over again, but it's one of the most recommended things that I do recommend when having your own business. It is really hard if you are on Etsy, and yeah, Etsy just doesn't really offer this thing, but if you have a standalone website like Shopify, start an email list. Shopify collects them for you. You can actually go into your settings and mark it as like a tick box that's already pre-selected, and people have to unselect it. So whatever vibe you're going with there, whether you feel like that's a cool thing to do or a bad thing to do, it's up to you. But that is an option. But even just having that option there that people can sign up for your mailing list is going to help you in the long run with your business. And the more email subscribers that you have, the more people are going to see what you've got to show. So email and SMS. SMS can cost a bit more, and I would say use that one very sparingly. I feel like a lot of brands they can be a little bit much with the amount of emails they send. So you probably there's a happy medium. Yeah, there is really a happy medium about how many emails and how many text messages especially that you want to send to your customers. I probably don't send enough, if I'll be honest. I only send like one every like 4 months. So probably like one a month I think would be a good, well-rounded number. Anything more, I feel like it does, you'll probably see a drop off in subscribers because you're sending too many. And the main reason that you want to start an email list is because you cannot rely on social media. And I'm saying that as someone that has over 100,000 followers on Instagram and like collectively over 200 and something across my social media. You just cannot rely on it. The algorithms are changing daily. They change so much. From where I first started to now, they have changed like time and time again, and it's so much harder to get your stuff seen than it was when I first started. So you want to be able to try and build that email list from day one, so when Instagram eventually does just go, no, I'm not showing your stuff to anyone, you've got a direct line of contact with the people that want to see your stuff the most. Moving on to number 5, sell for profit from day one, or at least quite early on in your business. I wasn't really doing that when I first started. Obviously I started at 15, so I wasn't really, I didn't know really what I was doing. So I was kind of just selling what I thought was an okay price. For a 15-year-old, I was like, well, I can't afford like a $10 bow or something. I can afford a $4 bow. So I started selling bows. I did still make a profit on those bows, but it was really when I started making more bigger items like the scrunchies, tie-dye tops I used to make, those sort of things, where it got really hard to make a decent amount of profit on it. When I decided to change how much profit I actually made on items, that's when my business really took a turn, and I started actually seeing this as something I can do full time, and I started doing it full time. So I guess it is a little bit hard when you're first starting out. You want to try and get those reps up, those sales. You want to try and, I guess, compete against a very saturated market, and that is what most of the markets in today's world are, because people are already selling most of the stuff that people are selling. So you don't want to be trying to be competitive, but you need to know when to up your prices, and you also don't want to go in too low and be running at a loss or running at barely a profit. Like, you got to pay yourself too. You got to make sure this is worthwhile for you too. I know a lot of people do it as a hobby, which is fine as well. Yeah, you want to be able to make a little bit of money from it. Even if it is just your passion project, you still want to make something at the end of the day. Yeah, this is something that it did take me a long time to realize, but once I did realize the potential there, and I also had a following and customers behind me, I was able to kind of keep pushing that price up until a price where everything makes sense. Everything makes sense now that I can do wholesale. I can do the buy one, get one sort of deals. I can do the free shipping. I can afford to do marketing if I wanted to. I can afford more expensive fabrics, and that kind of offsets it. It is a happy medium, and it is a little bit hard to figure out where it is. And you don't have to figure it out from day one, but I do recommend just trying to at least do a little bit of a profit from day one and just work your way up as you get better as well with making the products. I know for myself, when I first start making anything, I make sure it's at a discounted price. I have like a price in mind where I want to be, and I start over here, and then I will gradually increase the price until I reach where I want to be. And at that point, my ability to make that product is at the premium standard that I'm happy with. There's a few things to think about in terms of that, but those are the 5 things that I would do differently if I was to start my business in 2026. And it's mostly just doing them earlier. It really is. It's doing these things way earlier, either from the start or from a couple months in. Definitely not leaving it as late as I did for a lot of these, because I feel like it would have definitely changed how my business grew, how fast it grew. But that's okay, we are all learning. But I just hope that one of these at least will help you in your journey for your business. Let me know if you do any of these in the comments, or let me know if any of these suggestions have helped you, because I know they've helped me. Thanks again .store domains for sponsoring this video, and thank you guys for watching. I hope you have a great day. Bye.